Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the music ranking show that we like to call Music Meltdown. I'm here with somebody new, I guess. This is Zach, Z-Pop, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about a theme that I know utterly nothing about, and they know everything about. We're going to be ranking the 24 James Bond theme songs. I know none of these movies. I'm not a movie goer at all. So I had to get somebody that knows this stuff. I only just found out today that they knew all the movies, but I figured they had some sort of experience. So I guess I did my job a little bit. With that being said, I knew a couple of these songs going into it, but didn't really know the correlation to the movies. I still don't know that because I'm not great at my job. But with that being said, your recollection and knowledge of these going into it?
Yeah, sure. I grew up and I saw Casino Royale, and I think that's kind of what drew me into the Bond world, just based on my age. I think maybe people could predict that. Really liked the first two Craig movies, and then sophomore year of college, I just didn't have a lot going on. I wasn't super, working out with the college, everything. So I needed something to do. So I decided to watch all 24 of them. Or at the time, I guess it was the 20 before Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, and then Skyfall came out shortly thereafter. So yeah, that's kind of when I first saw them. But just because I saw them a while back doesn't mean I've kind of like lost interest. I've seen the most recent two, and every now and then I kind of go back and I follow some YouTube channels related to ranking Bond content and stuff like that. So it's something that's kind of an enjoyable thing, a hobby for me, just to kind of think about the Bond universe. It's just because there's a lot of movies, it's fun to rank the stuff from them, and I don't know. So it's a fun hobby. I don't think that these movies are anything like artistically, essential or for everybody. It's definitely like it's got its own audience, but I still like it, and yeah, so I'm pretty familiar with all of these songs, and I didn't have to do much preparation for this.
Nice. I do all of the preparation for this. I've been casually listening through all of the songs over the past 2, maybe 3 weeks or so. Finalized my ranking today, and I'm really excited to get into this. I meant to say this to you beforehand. Whoopsie. Do you want to do about 6 rounds of four? We each say four in a row, and then we just sort of pass off.
I can do it that way if that works better for you.
Sounds good to me. Would you like to start, or do you want me to? I'm cool with whatever.
What do you think?
Sure. I'll start us off.
All right.
Dead Bottom, the only sane pick. If you pick anything else, I am ending this video, and we are not going through with this project. It is Die Another Day by Madonna. To be brutally honest, it's just a complete failure of a song. It's a dated piece of horse shit with some of Madonna's worst vocal performances, lyrical performances, and production choices that I've ever heard. Simply put, nothing about it is even very musical. I'm going to give it a pretty light zero. God awful. Moving forward from there, I'm going to be talking about one that I think you might have a little bit higher than me. I have Another Way to Die by Jack White and Alicia Keys. Yeah, just another really god awful song. Jack and Alicia have absolutely zero chemistry with each other, and neither of them really have any unique qualities either. The keys and guitar work are so randomly tossed in, and both sound like garbage. Same with the horns, which are even worse to me. And just nothing throughout the entire song works. It's just two very subpar artists coming together without any good ideas or any good songs with themselves. I give it a zero 0.5 because maybe there was a slight amount of potential to this, unlike the Madonna song, which had no potential. Next up, this is going to be one where my biases very much come into play. This is The World Is Not Enough by Garbage. I don't like Garbage, just like straight up. I think that they're a pretty lackluster band in general. And I think that the song is just a nightmare. I hate the weird atmospheric type of sound that they're going for with the added electronics, so I just hate the Garbage sound. Vocally speaking, she's painfully mediocre and she lacks any amount of character for this type of song. And the chorus is some of the most overblown garbage that I've heard throughout this entire performance. It's really bad, but I guess I could maybe sit through this willingly. 1.5 for that one. It's nowhere near as bad as the previous two, but it's pretty dreadful. We're going up a good bit from this with Writings on the Wall by Sam Smith. Yeah, it's basically just them trying to do Skyfall again, which is basically what they've been doing for the past couple of themes. Very over orchestrated without a singer that can really pull off what Adele did. And it's not terrible. There's just, like I said, zero character, and nothing about it really functions to create a great song. It's pretty mediocre, but nothing offensive. I'd give it like a 2.5 stars. It's just bad Skyfall.
All right, that was interesting. As I expected, of
Yep.
course.
Things go up from here. It's just they've had some really, really shit songs.
Yeah. So I didn't rate each song. I didn't know that was a thing, but hopefully, people will be able to tell how I feel about these.
That's fine. You do what you want.
Yeah. So just, bottom four, I would say all four of these songs are not songs I really enjoy at all. So they could kind of, change up a little bit. That said, I do not have the same bottom as you, so maybe it's your time to end the video now.
Well, this is a good attempt. I'll see you back with Clay in about a week.
Oh, you're still going to have me for the next one. Eh? Okay, that's interesting. Well, I'm going to keep talking until you shut it off. So, in my bottom is probably one that you're going to like a lot more. It's All Time High by Rita Coolidge. And I actually thought before going into this, it's like, okay, I can't keep this at the bottom as a song. Like, maybe it's not my favorite song for a Bond movie, but I need to re-listen to the song. Like, maybe it's a decent song that just doesn't work for Bond, and that's the only problem with it. But I re-listened to it, and I'm sorry, I don't like this song at all. I just think it's very cliche. It's so smooth and just over the top. It just feels like it's made for like a fragrance commercial or something like that, and not in a good way. The lyrics are very trite to me, and it just, especially for like a Bond movie, what I want is a little bit of like an adrenaline kick, and it doesn't have to be like, a lot of my favorite songs will be a little bit similar to this song, honestly, but this one just has nothing. It's just such a sleepy song, and yeah, it does nothing for me at all, and that's why it's at my bottom. Is if I gave it a rating, it would be probably 0.5. Like, I do not like it. I'm sorry. It's well produced, but that's the only thing I'm going to give it. That's it. Well produced. Second to bottom, Another Way to Die. So I agree on that one. It's not actually higher for me. From Quantum of Solace. The biggest problem with this, and this why I have this so low, is because I just don't think it's done very well. I like the idea of it, but it just was a complete failure of execution. And what's sad is I actually kind of like this movie, which a lot of people hate Quantum of Solace in the Bond world. That's a separate issue. Do still dislike the theme song. I kind of wish Alicia Keys maybe did the whole thing, because I like her singing, but she actually only sings a third of the verses. And Jack White just doesn't sound right for this, and he definitely doesn't sound right singing with Alicia Keys. I still would rather hear Jack White singing alone than them singing together, because it's just so inconsistent, the style. And then the chorus sounds very awkward and forced to me. So I don't like that very much. Yeah, I don't really know what everything you said about it is true too. I don't know if I noticed all that stuff, but I agree. 22nd, don't know where you're going to put this one. The Man with the Golden Gun by Lulu is not my favorite at all. Don't like this one. It is just, it sounds like stripper music. That's just kind of what I would, but like not even very good. Like the lyrics are so cheesy, and clearly like the innuendos are just very prominent. And it just, the sound of it too, with the like fake Asian stuff, and it's so cheesy and not good. And what's sad is Alice Cooper made a great song. I don't actually know if they wrote it in time or whatever, but the actual song they wrote, the backup song or whatever, is a really great song. So and it would have fit the movie really well, I think, too. So yeah, that's why that one's so low. And then Moonraker is my number 21. And I will get to the Madonna song very soon, but for now, Moonraker is my 21. And it's nice. It's a nice sounding song. I think it's a little bit like All Time High in that it sounds a little sleepy. It feels a little forced, because they'd already used Shirley Bassey 2 times before this song, and she's great, and I think she sings this one pretty well too, but it just kind of feels like she just got presented the song and just had to figure out how to make it good. It's kind of how I hear it. and it just doesn't stand out as really much of anything. It's just kind of like a very generic and forgettable Bond song. That's kind of how I would describe it. So that's my bottom four. I've got a couple of other ones I really don't like, coming up, but for now, those are my bottom four. Yeah.
Okay, then. We have one dramatic disagreement there.
One for me too.
I know.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not the big one. I think we're going to have some more disagreements here. My number 20 is going to be A View to Kill by Duran Duran. I don't think that this is a bad song, mind you, but it plays so heavily into being a theme song, I feel. I don't think it has a very strong hook or a notable synth part, which, that's what you want from a Duran Duran song. Like, I don't know. I was expecting a lot more out of them because I love Rio and there's some great songs on their self-titled record, but there's a much better synth pop Bond theme song made by a different band. For me, this one's going to be a 2.5. I think it's fine. Next up, I don't care for this one very much. It's The Man with the Golden Gun by Lulu. But I think it's solid. I think it's well suited to be a Bond theme, if a bit generic. I think Lulu has a pretty solid performance as well. However, there's not a ton really unique about this, and I think that this is one of their worst sounding theme songs in general. I think everything is just too loud, and I don't know, it just isn't great. There's not a ton to say about it. It's just sort of okay. Three stars. It's decent. First theme that I would call good, but not necessarily that I like, is going to be For Your Eyes Only by Sheena Easton. It's another solid one. Sheena has a decent performance overall, and I love the sort of minimalist backing that the song has, making her able to really sell it on her delivery. There's not a ton to write home about this song, but it's just kind of solid across the board. 3.5. I think it's good. And the last one I'm going to be talking about is the Thunderball. Overall, very well orchestrated song. Horns and keys are amazing. Most things about the song should totally land, but Tom Jones is shit. He lacks really any power, in my opinion. He's a really sort of bland vocalist to me. I still give it a 3.5 because everything outside of Tom Jones is pretty good. But yeah, it's not bad. 3.5. It's good.
Well, that's interesting. I'll get to that one, and I'll explain why I think that's interesting. Okay, my next four. Number 20, I'm going to go with Die Another Day by Madonna. I'm going to agree with you on a few things. So I don't feel like I'm totally far off in that. Yeah, it's just the song is really, the production sounds really weird. Madonna's vocals sound bad. Honestly, I like Madonna, and I can tell that this song, like it's kind of like the Britney Spears thing almost. It almost sounds like a Britney Spears song. It's really like that generic pop. And I think normally I would really hate on this, but for some reason I just kind of am more interested in it than the ones below it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I think she kind of took this approach where she was like trying to do some really strange stuff for a Bond song, like the whole Sigmund Freud section, and then kind of like, I'm going to break up the cycle. And I actually have a tough time like thinking that would even be like, they would go for that these days. I think they're very particular now about like, oh, it needs to be a really well produced and careful song. And this song just sounds like they just kind of took everything to the wind and tried and kind of failed, but at least they tried. And I just sort of am intrigued by that. And I think it's kind of catchy in a really bad way. So that's why it lands where it does. I think it's okay. But I understand people that have it at the bottom, no problem. But yeah. Number 19 is another one you had kind of close to the bottom. It's Writings on the Wall from Spectre. And really like Spectre. I'm just a Craig fan. So another one that I think a lot of the fan base is trashed on, but I liked it a lot. This song, however, not the best. I think it's like decently emotional. I think the strings and stuff are really powerful. It's just, in Sam Smith, I'm okay with going a little frail, but it just seems a little bit like over the top, like trying to be vulnerable, and like it kind of works, but it's just a little too much. I think the problem is I like a lot of Bond songs a lot. Like my top 12, honestly, I'm switching it up a lot, and it's really hard to decide. So, but this one is still kind of in the don't like zone. It's just, for some reason, it just does, even though I think it's well done And I think I'm moved sometimes by it if I'm in the right mood. Most of the time, I just kind of lean against this one. So, number 18, this is probably my most controversial placement. It is Goldeneye. Yes, it's Goldeneye. That's quite the expression. So Goldeneye, I want to talk about it a little bit. So it is written by U2, and yes, by Bono and the Edge. I don't know you knew that, but it's sung by Tina Turner, and it was kind of like the theme song for Goldeneye was after a 6-year hiatus in the movies, and they kind of came back with a very different sounding song that I think fit the 90s pretty well. So I'm saying a lot of good stuff about it, and I get why people like it, but I think this was the time when U2 was doing Zooropa, which is not an album that I personally like at all, and I can kind of hear that sound on this, where it's just very mechanical, but in a very dated way. And just that opening, it just sounds very like dated, bad U2 to me, like that after they kind of fell off the cliff. And then the chorus is another one that just sounds kind of forced to me and like kind of stapled onto the verse. So Tina Turner does a really good job singing the verse, and she sounds really good, and she kind of sells it. But then it just the chorus, I just am always kind of like falling asleep during it, and it just feels kind of awkward. So I know people love this one, but for me, it just doesn't do a whole lot, and so this is where it ends up. Sorry, we're gonna have a lot of disagreements here. Number 17 is Thunderball. That's not a disagreement on placement. However, the reason for placement could not be more different. I find Tom Jones a very good singer. I mean, he definitely goes very over the top, but it's kind of appropriate for Bond. I think for me, this song it has a very like band geeky sound. Like it's just the orchestra and the stuff is just so kind of over the top with the big horns ripping and everything. And it feels a little cheesy. And I just can't quite buy into it. It doesn't really set the mood well. It just feels like I'm like a nerd in band again. That's kind of what, I played in band. So it just kind of, that's what that mood of that song. So I just can't place it too high because it just doesn't, do much for me in terms of what the song's trying to achieve. But I think Tom Jones sounds really good. So not really a problem with him.
Okay, shit. I gotta recover. Holy fuck. I don't even. You're getting Zooropa? For one thing, Zooropa's fucking awesome. 4 stars.
Not at all. Not at all.
You two fell off the cliff in 2000. That's where my U2 cutoff is.
I kind of got back on track there. That's
no. Fuck off. Their last record worth a damn, in my opinion, is Pop. But I know that's a controversy
not
for some people.
Not
fair enough. Alrighty, so I'm gonna get into the list here because I'm gonna reconvene myself. I'm gonna recollect.
Storm's off first.
Yeah, I'm going with something that I'm pretty happy that I'm going to now, because I suspect this is our biggest disagreement. It's my 16. You Know My Name by Chris Cornell. I love Chris Cornell as a singer. This is gonna be my Chris Cornell rant, by the way. He's one of my absolute favorites in general, but his music is the embodiment of disappointing. I hate how he's so wasted with these sort of heavier, grungy rock bands all the time. Like, you are an amazing singer, and I love when it's stripped down and he's just able to soar. It's why Euphoria Morning is just incredible, in my opinion, and why Soundgarden is just sort of meh. Like, I feel like he's so mismatched in the groups that he's put into, and I just wish that he did more things like Euphoria Morning. Fun fact, sort of mutual that we know, somebody named Roxanne gives Euphoria Morning a 0.5 on Rate Your Music. Anyways, back to You Know My Name. The intro of the song is pretty horrible. I hate how it starts, but whenever the tempo gets going a little bit more, I think it's pretty solid. Just sort of your standard Cornell affair, a pretty decent rock song overall, and he's incredible, but I just wish it was entirely different from what it was. 3.5 stars. It's pretty good. And you said your top 12 are all pretty good. I think that my top 15 are all really good songs. They're all 4 stars or above for me. I think that they're very good. And it's fine because 15 is also by an artist that I can't stand, but unlike Garbage, she's able to put together a very good song. I'm talking about Skyfall. big bias here. I really can't stand most of Adele's hits. I think that she continuously oversings again and again, and it ruins so much of her material. However, musically speaking, the song is just absolutely brilliant. I adore the orchestration here. It feels like a modern take on something like Nobody Does It Better Than Me. And as much as I hate how Adele just goes for power over and over again, it works in this context, and I can't deny that. And like I'm saying, as much as I really don't like her, I can't deny that this is a very objectively well-made song. 4 stars for me. Next up, I'm going to be talking about We Have All the Time in the World by Louis Armstrong, I believe. Very pretty song. I love the acoustics and the background. It feels very subdued compared to other Bond themes. Because of that, it's just a really easy and a really fun listen, although not necessarily as memorable for me. I think it's very good, just not one of the most notable ones to me. Alrighty, so next up, I'm going to be talking about You Only Live Twice by Nancy Sinatra. Once again, very pretty. Nancy has great delivery and her voice is just very good. I love the horns and I love how it plays with the strings. There's not a ton to complain about. It's a 4. And a lot of the Bond themes sort of have this sort of similar review for me. They're very well made songs, they're very well performed songs, but there isn't necessarily the most exciting things for me to write about. They're just very good, pleasant listens. So yeah, there's my 4.
Yeah, I can see that with Bond songs. I kind of struggle a little bit because I think a lot of them I really like listening to them, but it's a little hard to think just like how many of them are really things that like I really want on like when I'm not thinking about Bond or something like that. So that's I think the struggle with a lot of them. But it's still fun. We're gonna have very different lists. We know that already.
Things have been fun so far. Let's put it like that. We were talking beforehand because we either really agree on stuff or we very much disagree.
Yeah, probably more the latter than the former.
We have fallen into the latter, and I couldn't be happier because this is going to make things so much more interesting.
Yeah, for sure. What's interesting is you brought up some really ones we have much higher, but I don't necessarily disagree with some of the stuff you said about them. So we'll see how that plays out. This is kind of, so my bottom 8 are kind of like songs. I would say like something like Thunderball, I'm getting into the territory where it's like, okay, it's pretty good. But probably the rest of them, I would probably say, I don't really like these songs very much. This is kind of the tier of like, these 4 are kind of like, they're good, they're fine. They're not things I'm excited about. So that's kind of what this level is for me. So my number 16 is going to be Tomorrow Never Dies by Sheryl Crow. This is one I think the Bond community doesn't tend to like very much because Tomorrow Never Dies was originally written with a song by K.D. Lane called Surrender. And that was originally intended to be the Bond song, and that the music was even incorporated into the score. But at the last second, the producers changed their minds and put it in the credits, and then they asked Sheryl Crow to write Tomorrow Never Dies. So I think people have a little bit of a grudge about that. For me, I like Tomorrow Never Dies. I think it's a nice song. I think it's got a pretty melody. It has a very Bondish melody. It just kind of has that sound. The only thing really holding it back for me is just that Sheryl Crow as a singer, like Bond songs have gotten a really, really good set of singers. And I'm not saying Sheryl Crow is a bad singer at what she does, but for Bond, I think you can tell when she's trying to hit the high notes and stuff like that, it's more of a strain. And I think just in a crowded field of competition, I think that kind of holds it back a little bit for me. But I still like this one a lot more than most people, I think. And number 15 is going to be From Russia with Love, which is a pretty song. This is not a song that was used for the title sequence. It was the first Bond song with words in some ways because it was for the second movie, and they still kind of had an orchestral song at the beginning, and now they added this to the credits scene, the one with the vocals. So I don't know if they quite figured out like what a Bond song was at that point, and there's just a little bit of just like, oh, this is just kind of a love song for the ending credits scene or something like that. Said it's a very nice song. It has almost a little bit of like a Sinatra sound to it, very classy. It's tricky. Like I can see why somebody would like this a little bit more, but I just don't quite love it as much as other songs I know that are kind of like this. I wouldn't point out it From Russia with Love as my favorite like oldie standards song. I would just say it fits well into that mold and it's pretty good. But that's where I have that. My number 14 is going to be We Have All the Time in the World. Louis Armstrong from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and then reused in the most recent one, No Time to Die, for unknown reasons. I'm personally, I don't love On Her Majesty's Secret Service as much as some Bond fans are very, very big on that movie and think it's the best one ever. But I do like it enough that I sort of am like, that song fits with that movie. It shouldn't really be reused. So I was a little bothered by that, but it's a nice song. I like Louis Armstrong. I think his vocals are nice on the song. I wouldn't say that this song is my favorite Louis Armstrong. I think there are a lot of other Louis Armstrong songs that I would point to as being better examples of his sound. So it doesn't have like a special emotional attachment to me, even though the Bond universe is kind of trying for that, because this is like the song for Bond when he actually finally gets married to somebody. So that's the association that they seem to be playing up. I just don't quite know if the song has that much meaning to it, but if you just put it on, I'd like it. It's a nice song. And then my number 13, and I kind of struggled a little bit with this one, but I had a little higher and I moved it back down. I have License to Kill. This is a song that is probably a little lower rated by most of the Bond community. And I like it. I think it has a really good production. I think that's the big thing. It's very dated, like 80s sounding, but it just really like kicks in and it's so full and big. It really is that time period. And that producer actually produced some stuff for like Mariah Carey. So it's kind of the same smooth jazz kind of thing that they're doing. But, whether you like that or not, I think Gladys Knight, she just really, really sings the heck out of this one. And it's some of the best vocals on any Bond song, really. So it's a very cheesy kind of song. And I definitely can't take it always, but sometimes I'm very in the mood for it. So it kind of ends up here. I like it a lot. But yeah, it's a little too like of its time to get higher. So.
Alrighty. We went through a round in which I don't totally hate your picks. That's good to see. Alrighty. Yep. Alrighty. So number 12 for me, I am stunned that you put this one so low. I have Moonraker by Shirley Bassey, the last of the three that she did. Just a really classic track. Shirley gives a very stunning performance with some great orchestration. I like this one lyrically. I didn't really take that into account very much because they're all just kind of going for the same thing a lot of the time. But I don't know, maybe this one kind of feels a little bit generic within a lot of the female-led orchestral singer-songwriter songs, but despite that, it's one of the better ones. 4 stars, very, very good still. My number 11, I did not like this song at all my first time, and that is License to Kill by Gladys Knight. What I wrote was, I'm not crazy about it. It feels really overblown and overdone. Gladys is over singing a bit for my liking. The horns at the end are very over the top, and the synth here is just absolutely too much. But as you keep listening to it, the more and more it grows on you, the more and more just fun you let yourself have with it, the better it gets. It's so exuberant and it's just so killer within its execution. Went from a 2.5 to me to a 4 star on my next listen. At number 10, I'm going with Goldfinger. I really enjoyed this one. I think the horns are wonderful. The massive feel of the song, and Shirley's command that she has on the mic is just second to none. And like most of these, there's not time for me to say. It's just an incredibly well-made song and incredibly well executed. 4 stars, very good work. And my next one, I am really glad that both you and I have this one higher. Tomorrow Never Dies by Sheryl Crow. This one took me by surprise. It's very good, I think. I love Cheryl's voice and how she plays into the orchestration. It feels very powerful, but she's not necessarily going as hard as other singers. So she kind of recognizes that she needs to play second fiddle, and it just plays off of each other very well. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. Not a ton more to say about it, but it's got to be my first 4.5. I think this is a great song. I got 9 Bond themes that I think are really great songs. So
nice. Yeah, I probably actually like that one a little bit more when I kind of first started off, but I think with time I just kind of gravitate towards others a little bit. But okay, so here my number 12 through 9, I'm kind of getting, I'd say honestly my top 12 moves around a lot, and it's moved around a lot since I last made this list a few months ago. So, but I tested it and, tried to get it down for this. So, but these are just all songs that I just think are great Bond themes, and I think are, really essential parts of, the Bond movie universe, and also just very fun to listen to on their own. So I like all of these songs. And yeah, so my number 12 is going to be The Living Daylights by Aha. It's a really good song, and actually I think a lot of Bond fans, again, will have this one quite a bit lower. But for me, I think this is a big slice of great 80s writing. I think, I don't know that much Aha other than Take On Me, obviously, but this song makes me want to delve into them more because they just have such a cool like synth sound. It's very 80s, but it just really works. And then the kind of horn blasts and everything like that John Barry adds, I thought was a good idea. When they made their own version of it without that, and I don't know if I like it without the orchestra as much personally, but I can see why they did it. It's probably a little less, more radio friendly that way. And then what I really like is kind of a middle section, and it just gets very like atmospheric with the different instruments, and you can kind of just groove into the sound. So yeah, I like this one a lot, and it's a little confusing why I have it like this low, but I still think it doesn't quite have that like big hook that I'm looking for with a Bond song. It still feels like a little bit on the forgettable side, but it's tough because like I can see people loving this one. I wouldn't complain about it.
Their debut is really good, by the way.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I really like that record.
I will check it out. Number 11, I have Skyfall. And this is one, maybe you might have expected I would have this one higher. A lot of people really enjoy this one or think it's a top 5 Bond song. I think that's very common. And I think it's a great Bond song. I think it's really well orchestrated and written. I think the only reason it's this low is just because it's Adele. And I think this is like the perfect place to put Adele. Like her vocals are perfectly made to do a Bond theme. And I think they really nailed that. But she's still just not my favorite in general. And I still kind of notice that here in a limited way with the like backing vocals during the chorus. I just don't quite go for it. It just sounds a little bit just kind of normal, I think. But I think it's still a very haunting song. I think it works really well. The title sequence for this movie is excellent. Possibly my favorite Bond title sequence. I think it's really cool. Probably I'm biased. I saw it in like an IMAX at first, so it just was like this huge screen experience and very memorable to me. But yeah, I like this one a lot. But I don't know if I think a lot of people really like pick this one out to listen to on its own a lot, and I don't really do that too much. I just sort of like it in the context of the Bond universe. Number 10 is, and I'm kind of agreeing with you on Goldfinger. And Goldfinger is, again, another one that I think a lot of Bond fans will have very high. It's kind of considered a classic. It kind of is considered to have started the Bond song tradition in many ways. This was the third movie, and they hadn't had a song at the beginning yet. And here comes Shirley Bassey with this just incredible vocal performance with a song that just is very, very cool, especially for the time in the early 60s. And I still think it holds up pretty well. It's just not one that I really want to, again, like turn on like on its own. It's definitely just brings me into like, it's a Bond song. It doesn't have like that thing that I really want like a standalone song to have. So I think it works well in the context of that movie, but it's not quite as, even probably some of the ones below it are probably a little better on like playlists. This one is just kind of like, I appreciate it a lot, but I don't know if it's my favorite just as like a listening experience. And then my number 9 is A View to a Kill, which is one you've also already talked about. Very good. Duran Duran song. It's not my favorite Duran Duran song. I agree. I like some from Rio a lot better, and actually some other songs as well. So this is just one of the ones that it's like they play it in concerts, and I'm happy they do. I saw them once, and I was happy to hear this song. I think it's a good song. It's not my favorite. I think it's very cool that it's a Bond song. It got as popular as it did. So you're kind of saying it has no melody or something like that. And I disagree, because I think it has enough to be a big pop single that was very successful. One of the most successful Bond songs. So I think this is kind of like a classic part of, it's great to have this like more 80s hit song. And I think they're a little bit stronger as like a song than The Living Daylights personally, for a similar kind of song. I just think the way that it opens is just really gripping, and I think the verses are really moody. The chorus is maybe a little bit, standard, but yeah, I know why people love this one. I just prefer a few others, but this is getting into really good territory. So,
I mean, as the wise man once said, "Don't bore us, get to the chorus," and I just don't like the chorus on that one. So, all right,
verses are the good parts.
if only I could remember them. Anyways, alrighty. So these top 8, more top 9. We mentioned this because I do this a lot. I was listening to these at work the other day whenever I was finishing up, because I listen to a bunch of records whenever I'm working and whatnot, just sort of give rankings and whatnot,
Yes,
just
you do.
for fun. And I very much do. We were just talking about David Johansen's self-titled, but anyways, what these were the ones that I was listening to, and I felt pretty confident in all of them, and I felt pretty confident in my ranking after doing that. And number 8, I have From Russia with Love by Matt Monro. I love the orchestration on the song. I think that's a really greatly made song that works as a true theme. Matt's vocals are very good. As you mentioned, he has a very strong Sinatra vibe, and he's very noticeable. Well, I don't think that's anything too special in the grand scheme of things. It's just a really great little tune. 4.5. It's a great song for me. And we have the biggest disagreement possible here. By number 7, I got All Time High by Rita Coolidge. I loved this song. It's a really classic sounding pop hit. Rita has a wonderful voice, and it really complements all the solo guitar work and the drums in the background. I love the horn touches, and the keys are just gorgeous, and it has a really strong chorus to complement it. Weirdly, it came out in 1983, but it feels incredibly 70s to me. Feels like their first attempt to do Nobody Does It Better afterwards, and I would say it's most successful. I think that it's a great little pop song. 4.5. And next one I'm going to be talking about is No Time to Die by Billie Eilish. Once again, not a massive Billie Eilish fan, but this might be her best song overall. I love when her music is more stripped back and it's primarily based upon her voice, and because I think that she's a perfect modern singer for a Bond theme. Unlike Adele, where I feel like she overdoes it and sort of has too much going into it, I feel like a Billie Eilish or like a Lana Del Rey might be better suited for this, as they have that sort of softer, smokier voice that doesn't like overpower the songs, but is better to just sort of complement everything going around it. It's a really stunning backing track to go along with her vocals, and lyrically, it's one of her finest efforts. I can't say anything bad about it, except I just don't really love Billie Eilish. 4.5. And this is going to be my last 4.5, and one of the best songs here, The Living Daylights by Aha. I'm just becoming a total sucker for synth pop in general. I love how catchy and snappy this is. The drums are awesome. I love the bass and the synth groove that they have going on. And Morten Harket has such great charisma in the song. Removing Bond from it at all, it's just an absolutely incredible pop song, in my opinion, that I would listen to again and again. I have. And I have it at 4.5. It's a great song, but my top 4 are pretty much perfect songs.
All right. Yeah, I think that's a very fair take on that one. Yes. So 8 through 5, I think we're getting into songs that I think are, maybe not I think my top 4 are songs I really enjoy like on their own. Here are songs that I think, again, I might be a little biased towards just because I love them in the context of Bond movies. But I still really adore all these songs. And yeah, so number 8 is going to be No Time to Die by Billie Eilish. And this one, actually, it probably has the potential to rise even more for me. I started out when I first heard it, I didn't like it very much. And what's interesting is I am a big Billie Eilish fan. So I don't quite know how that happened. Because I really like her stuff. And when I heard this, I just sort of thought, oh, it's just very spacious, and I don't know if there's that much happening. And it didn't quite hit me at first. But then I think, as time goes on, it really sinks in what she's doing, and I can really hear her personality come across. And it's coming from, I feel like what we're going to look back on as like the golden age of Billie Eilish. Like this is going to be like for people like me, like a period when she was really at the height of her like artistic powers and was really able to just kind of effortlessly convey a certain, you know, sense or mood on each song. And having this like, you know, Bond, you know, background or whatever, I think really works. And yeah, it's a really good one. I don't know if I loved how it was used in the most recent movie, but it, you know, it still was, you know, definitely a highlight of that one. So it's my number 8. My number 7 is going to be Diamonds Are Forever. And I like this one a lot. It is, you know, I think Shirley Bassey again, because she was in Goldfinger and she went on to do this one, it just she has a very big over singing kind of thing, and you become like very associated with Bond songs, that kind of singing style. And this one is a touch better than Goldfinger, I think, because it's just such a cool concept. It's kind of all the innuendos and much more subtle and classy with the innuendos than a song like The Man with the Golden Gun. But you know, almost you can just kind of ignore all that part and just kind of hear the song on its own. But if you get into the lyrics, it's just it's like this is kind of risque. So and then just the background of it is just with the soaring strings and horns and everything like that, just really cool and really lush. So I really like this one. I think it just, and you know, it's the only Bond song sampled by Kanye. So maybe a sample another one, I don't know, but most memorable one sampled by Kanye. So it's got that going for it. You know, I think this song just, it opens the synths that open it are just a little like they sound a little bad to me, and it just doesn't quite like have that crossover to, you know, regular song potential to get it higher for me. It changes a lot though. I do like the song a lot. So I think I had this one in my top 4 in my previous ranking, but I brought it down a little bit for some reason. Number 6 is going to be The World Is, wait, am I on 6? Yeah, 6. The World Is Not Enough, which is the one you hate for some reason. I think the opening of this song, where it just like kicks in with that big melody and the strings and then the guitar hits, is just amazing. It is just quintessential, like this is a Bond movie, this is a spy thriller. I know it's geeky, I know that this is like a geeky pick, but to me, like that's what makes a Bond song good to some extent. I just think it's so big and like epic, and the verses are not as good. They're much more kind of drawn back. I personally like Garbage. I think Garbage is a cool band. I think I forgot the singer's name, but I think she does a really good job with kind of creating a mood. So even though the songwriting is not perfect at the verses, I think she really still sells it. I like the perspective of the song as kind of being like from the perspective of the villain, and then I like the Bond songs that use the name of the film in a very like creative way. And this is one of them where they say the world is not enough, but it's such a perfect place to start, my love. Like it just kind of creates that, like, it's spooky almost. And you know, maybe, you know, it's more of a geeky pick, but a lot of Bond fans like this one. So I feel pretty confident having it this high is not, you know, I think you're more out of the box here on this one personally, but yes. So that's my number 6, and my number 5 is going to be For Your Eyes Only, which is another one you had pretty low. I think this is actually kind of getting into the territory of songs that I think are really good on their own. And this one, I think some Bond fans, they kind of say, oh, it's kind of like quiet and not really what I'm looking for. But for me, I think it just kind of starts out in that like moody verse part where she's singing in this very beautiful way, and it's just kind of like you drift off into your mood, and then it just kicks in with that big like piano hit, and then the drums hit, and then she kind of soars over that chorus, and it's just it has that big like it's very 80s, but in a way that I think is a little bit more timeless. It has that like big kick to it, even though it's a more like smooth and loving song. And I think that makes it was another big hit in its time. And I can really hear why. I think I didn't used to have this one as high because I just was kind of like, oh, this isn't, you know, exactly like your fast-paced Bond song, but it's really, really grown on me, and it's one I keep going back to, and I love to hear pretty much any time. So number 5, For Your Eyes Only.
Okay, a couple of things here. For starters, Billy's classic period ended in 2020. The new record kind of blew. Anyways, second thing, I don't hate The World Is Die Enough. I just hate garbage. I think that I just don't like them as a band. I think that Shirley Manson is a fine singer, but she just doesn't do a ton for me. And I don't know. I don't know their catalog too well, but everything that I've heard is pretty not good. So, but yeah, I don't have a ton else to say there. But I'm glad that you really like that Sheena Easton song. I liked it. I think that was the last one that I listened to. So maybe I had a bit of fatigue at that point, but I thought it was good for what it was. But like I said, these top 4, all 5 out of 5 songs, I think we actually share 2 of them, surprisingly. My number 4 is going to be Nobody Does It Better by Carly Simon, covered by my queen, Amy Mann, actually. I'm a pretty big Carly Simon fan overall, and this is one of her best songs. An amazing vocal performance with some of the best horn and string work of any Bond theme song, and the production on it is just absolutely incredible. It's a 70s fluff piece of joy, and I love it to pieces. Low 5, but still a 5. So, number 3, we're talking about Live and Let Die by Paul McCartney. This is from his band. You may have heard of them, but Wings, actually. This is a different band. I don't know these guys. Anyways, talking about Live and Let Die. I don't know what that was. There's not a ton to say about Live and Let Die. It's a perfect song. Amazing orchestration with an amazing McCartney performance. I love how it continues to build and grow more and more. My only issue is that it's not the Guns N' Roses version. But no, I think that it's a really, really great song and everything works together pretty perfectly. It's another 5. Not much to complain about here. Number 2, this is fucking insane where you place this shit. I got Goldeneye by Tina Turner. This thing's fantastic. I love Tina's voice. I think that the production on it is crisp and pristine. The way that she's able to cut through the drums and the amazing string work is just absolutely lovely. I feel like everything about it was put together to create like a perfect Bond theme with everything culminating in just a fantastic listen. 5. Just love it to pieces. And that's 1 star more than Zooropa. So let's go. And number 1.
At least 2 stars more than Zooropa.
Heavens no, don't be a silly goober there. Number 1, Diamonds Are Forever by Kanye West. I know, Shirley Bassey. Very interesting checking this song out. I'd long known and loved Diamonds from Sierra Leone by Kanye West, and it almost feels surreal to not hear it with the amazing kick in from the beat that Kanye has in that song. The Chef's Kiss there, that'd be my number 1, but I have to get as close as I can. Instead, it leads to Shirley's greatest vocal delivery of any of her Bond themes, fit with the amazing string and horn work and the tightest bass of any song of one of these. Shirley, in my opinion, just an exceptional song on all levels that I just wish Jay-Z was featured on. Another 5 for me. Just a really outstanding track.
Yeah, for sure. I think, any other day I could have Diamonds Are Forever pretty high up there. So these top 8 are really hard for me to sort out.
Absolutely. I wish it was any other day.
Well, this is what I have now. I got 4 left to talk about. The first one I'm going to talk about is Live and Let Die, Paul McCartney. And, this is I don't love Paul McCartney and Wings as a band very much, but for what he was doing at that time period, I couldn't really ask for better than this. And this is maybe one of the songs that is known best by like the general public. And then I saw the movie and I was like, oh, that's not what I expected at all. But that's a separate discussion. Not a great movie, very good song. Obviously, I think a lot has been said about it, but it's really cool how it combines different parts together with the faster chorus and the kind of more laid back verses. It still has a little bit of that cheesy wing sound to it, but it's just so well done that it's hard to complain. And you said you like the Guns N' Roses version better, and I think there's parts of me that like. Oh, you don't? Okay. There's parts of me that like the epicness of the Guns N' Roses version, but I think I'd still lean towards this as being the better version with Paul McCartney. It just feels a little bit more natural. Yeah, it's a really good song. I just like 3 a little bit better. My number 3 is the one you guessed and correctly guessed. It's You Know My Name by Chris Cornell. And look, I understand that first rock hit doesn't do it for everybody. And it honestly doesn't completely do it for me either. But as soon as those first like 15 seconds are over and that the strings kind of come in and the guitar and he starts singing, it does so much for me. And I'm biased towards this song because, this was my first Bond song, seeing it with Casino Royale. And I think the lyrics on this song are just completely incredible. I think they're really, putting themselves into the mindset of who Bond is as a person, which is just not something you really hear in many other Bond songs. But just beyond that, I do think it stands on its own as a song as well. I heard Chris Cornell play this song a couple times live before he unfortunately passed away. I'm a huge Chris Cornell fan. I love Soundgarden. I don't know what you're talking about. I think Euphoria Morning's good too, but Soundgarden is where it's at. But this song is also really, really good. I think he just brings a level of emotional commitment to the material that you don't really hear in other Bond songs. And that's, I think, what really makes it stand out for me, despite some of the arrangement being a little bit on that like Ricky Martin side. I get the complaints, but it just still is one that I'm going to go back to like constantly, as a Bond song. And I just love it. So that's why that one's that high. My number 2 is going to be Nobody Does It Better by Carly Simon. So I don't know if you even know the one I have left. But this is a great song. I love this movie, The Spy Who Loved Me. I don't usually like the Roger Moore movies, but The Spy Who Loved Me works really well because it's even though he's a little cheesy and doesn't quite sell the whole speaker agent thing, this movie really plays to his strengths. And this song is a great way to start the movie in that kind of mood, with the piano coming in, and then it's powerful, the way that Carly Simon sings the verses, and it just kind of makes you smile. It's a really, really pleasant song. It's really well produced. It has a little bit of that like disco edge, especially at the end when it's kind of fading out. She's kind of like, baby, you're the best. And it just kind of like goes on, and it's a happy, feel good, and it's just so well made. I struggle with like, is this really a Bond song? It doesn't almost feel right, but it's just such a good song on its own. It doesn't matter, and it fits the mood perfectly for the movie, and I love it. And yet I still have one I feel like is slightly better, and that is You Only Live Twice by Nancy Sinatra. And this is one that I just, I think in my first lists I had this kind of around like 8 to 10. And every time I'd like watch a ranking of Bond themes on YouTube or whatever, I'd always kind of like wait for this one. And then when I heard it, I was just like, oh, this is such a great song. And I just eventually realized like, no, this is my favorite Bond song. And I had no idea where it was coming from, but Nancy Sinatra is just such an amazing singer. Lana Del Rey took so much from her. But she just fits more into that like 60s mood. That I think is where Bond kind of originally came from. That's where that whole kind of spirit comes from. I think the orchestration on this is just incredible. The way that the strings kind of hit at the beginning, and then the lyrics are also really, really beautiful. It's this You Only Live Twice has got to be the cheesiest title. Like it's not a good title, and yet it's perfectly. Okay, yeah, it's not the worst for a Bond maybe, but it's still, it's just kind of silly. Like you only live once and then you only live twice. Like, okay, sure. But it's interweaved into the song. They decide to make it, and it's like you only live twice, one life for yourself and one for your dreams. And then it talks about kind of like love as being that dream. And it just kind of fits into that whole like you go through your life and you just kind of run by the numbers, and then sometimes you're interrupted by something. And I think it fits Bond better than you might think at first, because, this is a, series about somebody who is kind of struggling with being so good at his job and career that he struggles with, kind kind of that personal side and figuring out how to be kind of personally fulfilled. And I think the duality that the song kind of creates is really fitting for that. Again, I just think Nancy Sinatra singing is so classy, and it just really sounds of its time. And I just love it, and I could hear it all day. So for whatever reason, it's maybe a little bit of an unconventional pick, but that's my number one Bond song, "You Only Live Twice" by Nancy Sinatra.
Okay, that could have gone worse. I was panicking there at the end because I totally forgot what your thing was. I was running through in my head, and like I totally forgot that one because it's like every other of the female lead singer songwriter ones. No, I think it's a really good song. I just don't have quite that much love towards it, and I don't hate Soundgarden. I just love Chris.
You couldn't. There's no way you could hate Soundgarden.
Yeah, I don't like Alice in Chains, but I don't dislike Soundgarden. Like, if my big four of grunge kind of unconventional, I go Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots, Screaming Trees, and I guess Soundgarden can stay. I just don't really like Nirvana or Alice in Chains.
But I know that.
Why am I saying this? Getting myself in more trouble. Anyways, yeah, this was really fun. I really enjoyed this. Kind of fun that you brought back Lana Del Rey, because I brought her up a little bit then as well.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'd assume that you're a bigger fan of Lana than me.
I'm getting into her more, I think, as time goes on. There's still, I have some issues with some stuff. I don't think she's Nancy Sinatra, but she's still really good.
Yeah.
So,
alrighty. One more thing that I wanted to ask before we cleared this whole thing out. If you could pick one artist to do a Bond theme, like for the next film, let's say an artist that's at any point in time, which artist would you do? Because I have one that I think would be interesting, and I have one that I would desperately crave.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to think about that.
That's okay. I'll do mine first. One, because I'm absolutely desperate. I would kill, because, like I said, Goodbye Roxy Music. They did Amy Mann did a cover version of Nobody Does It Better, and I won't lie, it's not that good, but I love her, so it's great. But yeah, I think that she could really bring like a great sort of, especially in the 2000s, I think she would have a really great sort of classic Bond theme sort of idea. The one that I was tossing around at work today, I think in the 80s, Peter Gabriel could have probably done a really interesting one. I'm not sure how well it would have worked.
Yeah, it might have worked.
Mm-hmm.
It would have to have a very intelligent. It could have worked for maybe the Dalton Bond films, where he's doing a little bit more of a serious approach. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If not, you can just get Phil Collins, and he can do his own version of All Time High.
That would be low on my list. Whatever he did,
what?
Yeah, he can do All Time High. All Time High is very Phil Collins. I agree.
You're not a Phil Collins fan? What?
Mostly not. Although I do like what's the Take Me Home song or whatever. I like that song.
I forget. No Jacket Required rules. I love that.
Yeah. There's some good stuff on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have like completely original picks out here, but there's a song by Portishead called Glory Box, and I've always kind of seen this as like a Bond song in disguise. It just has a really cool like trip hop beat, and I think it could have worked really well for a 90s Bond theme. And I think Beth Gibbons might have done really well on a theme as a singer. So I think that's my pick, is Portishead. I think they could have done a great job.
Thinking of 90s, maybe this is just me putting my fantasies because of bands that I love, but I think Slade could have done something pretty interesting.
That is a little harder to hear, but maybe if they went a little bit more edgy with the story.
I feel like glam could lend itself into things, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me trying to be desperate.
What's the glammiest Bond song? Or because I think there was like Alice Cooper's Man with the Golden Gun, which has a little bit of that like glam fun to it, but mostly they tended to have not been the rock side.
Yeah, maybe Live and Let Die, if I'm being honest, but that's not really super glammy.
Exactly. Yeah. So
alrighty,
need more glam Bond songs. I would agree with that.
I gotta say, if we're picking a worst 90s one, I don't think that you can do worse than Garbage is pretty high up there in the worst option, but I don't think that you could have done worse than fucking, imagine Weezer doing one. Imagine Pinkerton era Weezer.
At least you agree with me on Weezer for this sole discussion.
I adore Weezer in most
they're an okay band.
They are an amazing band until they started sucking, which
it's not as big a difference as people think.
It dramatically is. Anyways, I want to do Weezer, so I'll get you back for that.
Oh gosh,
I
I
finished
don't
up
know if
my
I can
fruit.
hear it all.
So I finished up my fruit snacks and everything. So I think that we're good to finish up this episode here. It
Yep.
was real nice having you here. And
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
yeah,
Appreciate
no
it.
problem. I'm gonna go ahead and throw you on the spot here. Every time that a guest has their first appearance on the show, I like to give them their choice of an artist that I have to put myself through the displeasure of doing. And figure I'll ask, is there anybody in particular that you would want me to do?
Oh, I see. And I can't pick the 1975 because you're already doing that.
I mean, you can pick it. That makes the job easier for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, an artist, anything I can make you listen to.
Okay, the main thing is it has to be 10 albums or under.
Yeah, okay.
So you can't give me like fucking Miles Davis or something.
Yeah, well, Soundgarden, I guess, is my pick.
Honestly, that's fine. It's only 6 records. I like what I know enough. I just don't love them.
I'd be curious to hear what you think and what's the better stuff and what's not.
I can most certainly tell you the best Chris Cornell project, though, is most definitely Euphoria Morning. Alrighty. With that being said, this is a bunch of fun. Maybe I'll watch a movie at some point. I don't really like doing that, though, so we'll see how it goes. With that being said, hope everybody enjoyed. I hope you really liked this video. Hope it's an all-time high in our view count. With that being said, I hope that you have a really great one, and I hope you enjoy.